The twin moons of Varus 5 hung low in the sky, shining over the metal streets like two cold eyes watching everything. The bazaar beneath them was alive with noise shouts, strange languages, clattering machines, and glowing signs blinking in alien colors. Traders from 100 worlds lined the pathways, selling everything from broken starship parts to glowing fruit. It was a place where you could find anything if you were willing to pay the price. Sometimes the price was money. Sometimes it was something far worse. Arian walked through the busy crowd with tired steps. He was a human engineer, far from home and far from anyone who cared about him. His small ship was broken again, and he didn't have enough credits to repair it. He had come to the bazaar hoping to trade some tools or maybe find scrap parts he could fix. He wasn't expecting anything more. He certainly wasn't expecting her. But life often changed when you least expected it. As he passed a dark corner of the bazaar, he heard a soft voice, weak and trembling. "Please." "Not again." "Please." "Someone." Arian froze. The voice did not sound human, but it sounded afraid. And fear was a language he understood too well. He stepped closer and found a small cage made of cracked energy bars. Inside it sat a young alien woman with pale purple skin and hair that fell in messy waves over her shoulders. Her wrists were bruised, her clothes torn, and around her neck was a broken shock collar. She hugged her knees to her chest, as if trying to make herself disappear. The merchant standing beside the cage noticed Arian looking and grinned, showing sharp metallic teeth. "Rare piece, human." The merchant boomed. "Byron-born. Strong. Smart. Very expensive. But for you, maybe good price." Arian felt anger burn inside him. "She's a person, not a piece." The merchant laughed. "Here, everyone is a piece. Everyone is for sale." Arian looked back at the girl. Her eyes were a soft silver, glowing faintly in the dim light. They were filled with fear, but also something else, hope. A tiny spark of hope that he had no right to awaken. He told himself to walk away. He didn't have credits. He didn't need trouble. He had his own problems, his own life, but he couldn't move. Something about her expression held him there. Maybe it was how small she looked inside that cage. Maybe it was how she flinched every time the merchant raised his voice. Or maybe it was because Arian knew exactly what it felt like to be trapped, maybe not in a cage, but trapped by life, by fear, by hopelessness. The auction began. Voices shouted numbers all around him. The merchant called for higher offers. The girl closed her eyes as if preparing for the worst. Before he could stop himself, Arian raised his hand. Everything went silent inside him. "What am I doing?" He thought. The merchant's grin spread wider. "Ah, human bids. Very brave." Other bidders turned their heads, surprised. A human buying a iron girl? That did not happen often. Arian did not raise his hand again, but somehow his single bid was enough. Maybe the others were uninterested. Maybe they wanted something stronger, something less injured. Or maybe fate simply decided to step into Arian's path that day. The merchant slammed his hand on a rusted console. "Sold to the human." Arian felt his heart drop. He emptied his entire credit balance, everything he had. Enough to fix his ship, or buy food, or survive for another few cycles. Gone. When the cage door opened. The girl stumbled out. She stood near Arian, afraid to look up. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Lyra," she whispered. Arian nodded. "Come with me, Lyra. You're not a piece. You're not a thing. You're free now?" She stared at him with wide eyes. "You paid for me. Why?" Arian didn't know how to answer. Maybe it was destiny. Maybe it was madness. Or maybe it was simply what humans did. They saved others, even when it hurt them. And so, under the twin moons of Varus 5, a new story began. Two strangers walked away from the noise of the bazaar, one lost, one broken, neither knowing how deeply their paths would intertwine. Arian's ship. The Silver Wing was small and old, but to Lyra it looked like a palace. When she stepped inside, she paused at the entrance, afraid to move further. The metal floor felt cold under her bare feet. Soft blue lights glowed along the walls. Every sound echoed in the narrow hallways. Arian walked ahead, and then turned back when he noticed she wasn't following. "It's okay," he said gently. You can come in. No one will hurt you here. Lyra slowly stepped forward, her silver eyes scanning everything carefully. It was the first time in many cycles she had walked somewhere without chains pulling her back. But freedom felt strange, almost unreal. Her hands trembled slightly as she touched the wall of the ship, as if she expected an alarm to shout or someone to punish her. Arian noticed her fear. You don't have to be scared, he said. You're safe. Lyra nodded, but her voice was small. I do not know how to be safe anymore. Arian didn't know what to say. He led her to the tiny living area and gave her a cup of water. She held it with both hands, lifting it carefully like something fragile. When she drank, tears filled her eyes. I thought I would never taste clean water again. She whispered. Arian felt a twist inside his chest. He didn't know what she had been through, but he didn't want to imagine it. All he knew was that she didn't deserve it. How long were you there? He asked quietly. Lyra shook her head. I do not know. Days, cycles. My mind was empty. She touched the broken collar around her neck. This stopped giving shocks, but they kept it on me anyway. They like to see fear. Arian gently took a tool and removed the collar. Lyra stiffened at first, thinking he might tighten it. But when he let it fall to the floor with a dull metallic sound, she stared at him, confused. You removed it? She whispered. Of course, Arian said. You're not a prisoner anymore. But her reaction was not what he expected. She suddenly knelt in front of him, head bowed, voice shaking. You paid for me? She said. So I must repay. I must serve. It is the way of my people. A life bought is a life owed. Arian felt a shock of discomfort and quickly stepped back. Lyra, no. That's not what I want. I didn't buy you to own you. She looked up, her eyes wide. Then why did you save me? Arian hesitated. He wasn't sure himself, I guess, because I couldn't walk away. Something like warmth passed across Lyra's face. But it was mixed with confusion, like she didn't know how to understand kindness.ar and changed the subject. You should rest. There's a small room you can use. He helped her to a cabin barely large enough for a bed and a shelf. But to Lyra, it was like a private star system. She touched the soft blanket carefully, her fingers shaking. No chains. She whispered, No commands. Arian stood by the doorway. If you need anything, just ask. Lyra looked at him for a long moment. Her voice was barely a breath. I do not understand you, Arian. What do you mean? You bought me, then freed me. She lowered her eyes. Where I come from, no one gives without expecting something in return. But you gave me everything. Arian swallowed hard. It wasn't everything. Just what I had. That is everything, Lyra said softly. Before he could respond, his communicator buzzed. The sudden sound made Lyra jump back, fear flashing in her eyes. Arian checked the screen. It was Elena, his girlfriend. Messages filled the display. Arian, you missed our call. We need to talk. Where are you? He muted the device quickly. Lyra watched his expression carefully. She is someone important. Yes, Arian said quietly. Someone I care about? Lyra nodded slowly, her voice gentle. Then she must not know you risked your life and credits for me. Arian didn't answer. Lyra wasn't wrong. And that truth felt heavier than any chain. Days passed quietly aboard the Silver Wing, but the silence was never complete. Arian worked on repairing the ship's engines, while Lyra moved through the corridors like a soft shadow. She cleaned, organized tools, and even helped him patch damaged panels without being asked. Each time she touched a machine or a tool, she did it carefully, as if the ship itself were alive. Arian noticed it, and a small part of him felt comforted. But another part, deeper, darker, worried. Lyra's presence reminded him of everything he had risked, everything he had given away. His savings were gone. His ship was still fragile. And he still had obligations back home he couldn't meet. One evening, while the twin suns of Virus 5 dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the metal floors, Arian sat on a bench, exhausted. Lyra approached quietly, carrying a small tray with steaming food. She set it down in front of him and waited silently. "Thank you," Arian said, his voice low. She tilted her head. "You do not need to thank me. I owe you everything. That is law of my people." Arian rubbed his face, tired and conflicted. "You don't owe me anything?" "You're free, Lyra. I didn't save you for repayment." Her silver eyes glimmered in the dim light. "You saved me. I survived because of you. Survival requires balance. I must repay. I cannot do nothing while you carry burdens alone." Arian paused, staring at her. Her words carried weight, honesty, and something else he could not name. Understanding of life that humans sometimes lost. Burden? He asked quietly. "I have many burdens, responsibilities, people depending on me." Lyra stepped closer, her gaze steady. "Then allow me to carry some of your burden. That is how I repay." Arian shook his head, confused and worried. "I can't ask you to do that. You're still recovering. You've been through more than anyone should face." Her expression softened. "Recovery is not weak. It is a choice. I choose to help you. I choose to be useful. I choose to give you back some of what you gave me. Let me." Arian felt an unfamiliar tug in his chest. It was pride, yes, but also fear. Fear of relying on someone who owed him everything. Fear of trusting again. And most of all, fear of the unknown, the strange power in her words. The strength in her resolve. He looked at her, really looked, and saw more than a fragile girl. He saw someone who had survived horrors he could barely imagine. Someone who carried herself with quiet courage. Someone who could, if allowed, change the course of his life. "You really mean that?" he asked. "I mean it," she said simply. "I do not fear death, nor danger. I fear only that I might fail you." Arian exhaled, a mixture of relief and worry. "Lyra, I have a choice to make. And it's not just about the ship or my life. It's about what kind of person I want to be." She tilted her head slightly, listening. "Then allow me to help you make that choice." "Let me do what I can." He nodded slowly, feeling the first true connection he had experienced in cycles. "Okay," he said softly. "If we are going to face what comes next, we do it together." Lyra's lips curved into a small smile, her first real one since the bazaar. "Together," she repeated. That night, as Arian worked late into the ship's narrow corridors, Lyra stayed by his side. She did not speak much, but her presence was steady. She handed him tools, adjusted panels, and quietly followed every instruction. And yet, Arian realized that this was more than work. It was trust. Mutual, unspoken, and growing stronger with each careful movement. He knew danger was coming. He always knew it. The universe rarely allowed freedom to exist without a price. But for the first time in many cycles, he did not feel alone. And somehow, deep inside, he knew that allowing Lyra to repay him was not weakness. It was the first step towards something greater. A strange partnership had begun. One forged not by obligation alone, but by choice, respect, and the quiet courage that only humans, and perhaps those who trusted them, could create. The silence of the night aboard the Silver Wing was broken by a sudden, shrill alarm. Red lights flashed across the corridors, and a warning tone echoed in every corner of the small ship. Arian jumped from his seat at the engine console, heart pounding. "What now?" he muttered, rushing to the cockpit. His eyes widened when he saw the screen. A ship sleek, dark, and menacing was closing in on them. Its hull was engraved with the marks of slavers, the same ones who had hunted Lyra before. "They found you," Arian whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. Fear gripped him not for himself, but for her. Lyra stood beside him, calm but alert. Her silver eyes glimmered in the red light. "They will not take me again," she said softly. But there was no fear in her voice, only quiet determination. Arian shook his head. "Lyra, you should hide. I'll handle this." "No," she replied firmly. "You cannot do this alone." He wanted to argue, but before he could, her hand touched the console. A soft, glowing light spread from her fingers into the control panel. The ship trembled. Instruments stabilized, engines roared, and Arian realized with shock that Lyra was controlling the ship better than he ever could. Lyra, what are you doing? He shouted, gripping the edge of the cockpit. My people are not weak, she said quietly. Only trained differently. I will guide the ship through the field. Through the main viewport, asteroids loomed, moving like a chaotic river of rock. The slaver ship followed relentlessly, firing energy blasts that lit up the darkness. Arian's hands shook as he tried to take control, but Lyra's touch was steady, precise, and unerring. You are guiding it? He asked, astonished. Yes, she said. But you must trust me? Arian took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. He had always believed humans alone had ingenuity, courage, and quick thinking, but here, a being he had, just met was showing him that bravery, and skill were not confined to one species. The ship weaved through the asteroid field with almost impossible grace. Every time a rock threatened to crush them, Lyra's hands adjusted, calculated, and saved them. Energy shields flickered, engines groaned, but she did not falter. They won't give up? Arian yelled. They'll keep coming. They must, Lyra said calmly. But I will not allow them to win. Her confidence was contagious. Arian realized that he had been holding himself back, afraid of the unknown, afraid of failure. But Lyra's courage gave him a spark of something he hadn't felt in cycles. Hope dot suddenly. The slaver ship fired a massive energy bolt. The silver wing shook violently. Arian struggled to maintain control, but Lyra's hands glowed brighter, guiding the ship in a perfect arc through a narrow gap in the asteroid field. You're amazing, Arian said, breathless, gripping the console. I am repaying you, she replied simply. You saved my life. Now I save yours. The words hit him with a strange mix of awe and humility. She wasn't asking permission. She wasn't following orders. She was choosing to stand beside him, to fight with him. She had turned her own fear into strength, not because she had to, but because she wanted to honor the gift he had given her dash freedom dot by the time the slaver ship fell behind. Damaged and unable to follow further, Arian leaned back, chest heaving. The stars stretched endlessly around them, silent witnesses to the battle that had just passed. Lyra stood quietly, her hands still glowing faintly from controlling the ship. They will not return, she said softly. And if they do, we will be ready. Arian looked at her, truly seeing her for the first time, not as a fragile girl he had saved, but as a fighter, a partner, someone who had made an impossible choice and succeeded. He swallowed, voice barely audible. I don't know what to say. Then say nothing, Lyra said. Let our actions speak. For the first time, Arian understood something fundamental about humans and about beings like Lyra. Courage was not just in fighting. It was in choosing to act when fear threatened to paralyze. It was in trusting others. And sometimes it was in allowing someone else to carry part of your burden dot as the silver wing continued through the quiet stars. Arian felt a strange mix of relief and awe. The galaxy was dangerous, full of threats and uncertainty. But for the first time in a long time, he did not feel alone, and he realized that perhaps in the vast expanse of the universe, that alone was worth everything. The stars outside the cockpit stretched endlessly, silent witnesses to the danger that had passed and the danger that was still coming. Arian sat frozen in his pilot chair, his hands shaking slightly as he stared at the navigation console. The slaver ship had fallen behind for now, but he knew it would not give up easily. There were no guarantees in space, only choices, and some choices weighed heavier than a mountain. Lyra stood beside him, calm as ever, her silver eyes reflecting the faint glow of the stars. They will try again, she said quietly. And if they succeed, they will not stop with me. You're in danger too. Arian swallowed hard. I know, I never thought it would be this real. I never thought I'd have to make decisions like this. Her gaze softened. Decisions like this are what define a being. What you choose shows who you truly are. He shook his head, feeling the weight pressing down on him. But what if I choose wrong? What if I make a mistake? Lives are at stake, your life, my life, maybe others too. Lyra took a small step closer. Then you must trust yourself. And you must trust me. I can't force you. Only you can decide. Arian's stomach twisted. He had faced technical failures, hostile creatures, and impossible repairs. But this was different. This was morality, responsibility, and survival all tangled together. The warning lights flared again. Sensors detected the slaver ship moving faster, closing the distance with lethal intent. Arian's hand hovered over the disruptor controls. The disruptor was powerful. It could destroy the slaver ship, but it might also kill those inside. He had never fired a weapon like this before. He was not trained to take life. Arian, Lyra said softly, placing a hand on his arm. You paid for my life once. Now you can protect it again. But the choice is yours. Only yours. Her words echoed in his mind. I saved her. I gave her freedom. Now I must do more. But what is right? Arian closed his eyes, remembering the bazaar. The frightened eyes of a girl trapped in a cage. The tiny spark of hope that he had sparked in her heart simply by choosing to act. He remembered the moment he realized she was more than a fragile life to save. She was courage, determination, and loyalty wrapped in one small frame. He opened his eyes and looked at Lyra. She stood there, calm and unwavering, offering him a choice not out of obligation, but out of trust. Arian began, voice shaking. I don't want to do this. I don't want to hurt anyone. Then think of them, Lyra said. The slavers will not stop with me. They will hurt others, innocent beings. And if you hesitate, they may succeed. He swallowed hard. The truth settled heavily in his chest. Hesitation could cost lives her life, his, and maybe many more. And yet, acting meant taking responsibility for the outcome, for life or death. The slaver ship fired another blast. The silver wing shook violently. Arian's hands tightened around the console, knuckles white. You saved me once, Lyra whispered. Now I help you. Trust me. Trust yourself. Do what you must. Arian's breath came in short, sharp gasps. He looked at the disruptor one last time, then at the stars stretching beyond the viewport. Every instinct screamed to hold back, to hope for another solution, but deep inside he knew there was none. The universe demanded a choice, and he was ready to make it. He reached forward, hands steadying over the controls. His voice was quiet but firm. We do this. Together? Lyra nodded. Together? Arian activated the disruptor. A surge of energy raced through the ship, and the targeting system locked on the slaver vessel. He hesitated for one brief second, thinking of the lives aboard, thinking of the consequences, but then he remembered the eyes in the bazaar, the hope, the courage she had shown, and the trust she had placed in him. With a deep breath, he pressed the firing sequence. The energy beam cut through the darkness of space, striking the slaver ship. A blinding flash filled the viewport, and then silence. The slaver ship was gone. Arian sank back into his chair, exhausted, trembling, and relieved. Lyra's hand rested gently on his arm. You made the right choice, she said softly. Because you acted, you protected many lives. Because you chose, you showed humanity's strength. Not in violence, but in courage and responsibility, and in love for life. Arian didn't answer. Words felt small compared to what had just happened. Instead, he simply exhaled, letting the weight of the moment settle around him, and for the first time in many cycles, he felt that the galaxy, despite its dangers, had given him a chance to be truly human and truly heroic. The silver wing drifted through quiet space, the stars stretching endlessly on all sides, calm after the storm. Arian slumped into the cockpit chair, his body trembling with exhaustion. His hands still shook from the surge of energy, from the fear, and from the responsibility of what he had just done. The slaver ship was gone. The threat was gone. But the weight of the choice he had made pressed on him harder than gravity itself. Lyra sat quietly beside him, her presence steady, calm, and comforting. She did not speak at first. She let him breathe, let him feel the heaviness of relief and guilt all mixed together. Finally, she touched his shoulder lightly, a gentle warmth spreading through him. "You saved me again," she said softly. Her voice was steady, but there was a flicker of emotion in her silver eyes. Arian shook his head slowly. "I didn't save you this time. I just followed what I thought was right. But it doesn't feel right." Lyra's lips curved into a small, understanding smile. "You acted when it mattered. That is what is right. Right is not a feeling, Arian. Right is courage. Right is choice. And you chose courage." He looked at her, the alien who had come into his life as a stranger, as a frightened girl, and had now become someone he trusted with everything. His chest ached, a strange mixture of exhaustion and awe. I wasn't ready for this," he admitted. "I've never had to make a choice like that before. I've never had someone's life in my hands. Like that." "You did it," Lyra said softly, her hand still resting on his arm. "And you survived it? That is proof of strength. Not just of the body, but of the spirit." Arian stared out the viewport, the stars reflected in his tired eyes. "I don't feel strong," he murmured. "I feel broken, guilty, scared." Lyra tilted her head. "Then you feel human?" "Humans are not the strongest creatures in the galaxy. Arian, they do not have the fastest engines, the strongest shields, or the most powerful weapons. But humans survive. Humans act when others hesitate. Humans carry burdens that would crush others. And humans have courage in their hearts. You have that courage. That is why you survived, and why I survived." His throat tightened. The truth in her words settled over him like a blanket he hadn't realized he needed. The galaxy was dangerous, the universe full of threats that seemed impossible to overcome. Yet here, in this small battered ship, he had survived. He had acted when it mattered, and someone extraordinary had chosen to stand beside him. Arian exhaled slowly. "I keep thinking about Elena," he said quietly. "She doesn't know. She never understand why I did this." Lyra's gaze softened. "Then she doesn't need to understand. Understanding is not required for respect. What matters is that you acted, that you chose, that you protected life. That is something even the universe can honor." He looked at her, and for the first time he noticed the small signs of fatigue in her posture. The long days, the tension, the constant need to stay alert, she had given everything to. And yet she did not complain. She did not ask for gratitude. She simply offered what she could, quietly, without demand. "I owe you so much," he whispered. "More than I can ever repay." Lyra shook her head gently. "You do not owe me, Arian. You gave me freedom. You gave me a chance. I am choosing to repay that, yes, but not as a debt. As a gift. As a way to honor the life you protected. That is all." For the first time, Arian felt a calm settle over his heart. The adrenaline was gone. The terror faded, but a quiet understanding remained. He was not alone. He had someone who trusted him, who believed in him, and who would stand beside him no matter what the galaxy threw at them next. He exhaled, feeling the tension leave his shoulders. "Then we face the future together," he said softly. Lyra's lips curved into a genuine smile this time, warm and bright. "Together?" She agreed, gotten for the first time in many cycles. Arian felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Not just for survival, not just for safety, but for connection, for trust, and for the strange, quiet courage that made humans, and those who chose to stand with them, truly extraordinary. The stars outside stretched on forever, and inside the silver wing. Two lives intertwined, scarred, brave, and ready for whatever came next. The silver wing coasted into orbit above Wyatt. Neutral station, its engines humming softly. Arian sat in the cockpit, exhausted but alert, watching the stars move steadily past the viewports. Every fiber of his body ached from the choices he had made. From the weight of the lives he had touched and the lives he had protected, the adrenaline had faded, leaving only a heavy stillness. Lyra moved beside him, her steps quiet and deliberate. Her silver eyes were calm, but the small rise and fall of her chest betrayed fatigue. She had given everything, just as he had, and yet she remained poised, strong, and ready. Arian glanced at her, a faint smile forming, despite the tension that lingered in his chest. "We made it," he said quietly. His voice was soft, almost a whisper. "Yes," Lyra replied, her gaze meeting his. "And we did so together. That is the point. Not just survival, but partnership." Arian nodded, thinking of the choices he had faced, the fear he had carried, and the courage he had shown beside him. He had never imagined that saving a stranger could lead to this bond, this trust, this strange, quiet strength. He activated the communicator, hesitating for a moment before making contact with Alina. The screen flickered, and her familiar face appeared. Her eyes were wide with worry, mixed with confusion. "Arian," she said, voice trembling slightly. "Where have you been?" "I've been trying to reach you for cycles." "Why didn't you answer?" Arian swallowed, feeling the weight of the truth pressing down on him. He wanted to explain everything, the danger, the choices, the fear, the lives he had saved, but words felt small, inadequate. Instead, he spoke honestly, in the simplest way he could. "Elena," he said, voice steady but soft, "I've been through something you wouldn't understand. I had to make choices. Choices that changed me. I can't pretend it didn't happen." Her brow furrowed. "Change you? How?" Arian looked past the screen, at Lyra standing beside him. The alien who had once been a frightened stranger was now someone he trusted more than anyone else. Someone who had faced the impossible alongside him without hesitation. "She helped me," he said simply. "She saved lives. She saved me." Eleanor's eyes widened as she looked at the screen, then at the ship. "Who is she?" "She's someone I saved," Arian said quietly. "And someone who chose to stand with me. She's shown me courage, loyalty, and trust in a way that I cannot put into words." A long silence followed. Arian felt the tension in his chest slowly unwind, replaced by a strange clarity. He understood now that connection, trust, and courage were more powerful than fear, danger, or even love. They were what allowed humans and those who chose to walk beside them to survive and thrive in a universe that rarely showed mercy. Elena's voice softened, still uncertain but calmer. I see. I don't fully understand, but I see that this was important." "That you were brave?" Arian exhaled slowly. "Yes, I was brave, but not alone. And that is what I want you to understand. Courage is stronger when shared. Survival is sweeter when shared. And sometimes what you save may save you in ways you never expect." Lyra placed her hand lightly on his arm, a silent reminder of the bond that had grown between them. Arian felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the stars outside. The call ended, leaving only the hum of the ship and the soft glow of the station lights. Arian leaned back in his chair, looking at Lyra. "We've survived something impossible," he said quietly. "And we did it together." She smiled, small and genuine, tired but proud. "Together," she repeated. Arian nodded, feeling a calm he hadn't felt in cycles. The galaxy was dangerous, full of uncertainty, threats, and choices that could crush anyone. Yet here they were, scarred, weary, but unbroken. Together, human and alien, bonded by trust, courage, and shared sacrifice. As the station grew closer, the hum of life beyond the silver wing faintly reached them. It was a reminder that the universe went on, that challenges would come again, and that life was never simple. But Arian understood something essential now. Humanity was not measured by strength, speed, or weapons. Humanity was measured by courage, by choice, by the willingness to stand for others, even when fear whispered to run. And somebody